When I first saw footage of the new Tomb Raider reimagining, I was disappointed. From the stylised camera to the lack of interactivity, the whole thing looked like a semi-interactive movie, and this worried me a lot. Now, I'm not saying that trying to do something that merges both game and film is inherently bad. I'm saying that it's becoming an unpleasant trend that's being used far more than it should. Let me give you some examples of less offensive use. Many action games feature stylized cameras for takedowns of specific enemies. That's no problem, it works well. Adventure games aren't really hurt by the stylized camera, largely because they lack much interactivity. You simply click, point, drag and select from dialogue. As a result, the camera doesn't really hurt the game. No, the real problem with the cinematic angle approach is in games like this, where it appears that there's very little to it, due to the fact that having the game be too open and free would require a less cinematic user-controlled camera. Now, having looked at this game's footage and compared it to Uncharted, it's very clear the similarities, and one of the big problems I have with the Uncharted games is much of the platforming is very directed. While the older Tomb Raider games required you to look around and figure out where to go, Uncharted very clearly uses the camera to show you where to go next. It reduces the platforming more often than not to just a selection of button pressers with very little skill involved. It also threatens to hugely reduce exploration, which is another thing I liked in older platformer games, like the Tomb Raider titles. Here we have a sequence from Uncharted, and I think it just demonstrates how little game there is to some of these rather cool looking action sequences. From here he's about to get knocked off, and you'll see a platforming section which is basically unlosable unless you do it intentionally, despite how high impact the whole thing appears to be. All you're doing here is pressing forwards, that's it, and despite as exciting as it looks, that's all there is to this sequence, and it's all there is to a surprising amount of similar sequences in the Uncharted games. Now, I like Uncharted, and although I am hoping to come back to this sequence and show you a lot more of it and try and go over all the issues I have in a later video, once again I'm not saying cinematic influences are bad, I'm just saying it's disappointing when games overuse them. They're not necessarily that much better than cutscenes. Well, that's it. I have a bunch more stuff, but I want to get better before I do it. Bye!